can you learn in the next 21 minutes? It's a challenge, and I can't wait to find out how you respond to that challenge. Hi, I'm Kiki L'Italienne, and I am here with the 21 in 21 talks. Now, this is a series of talks that comes from Association Chat. I'm so excited to bring this to you because if you've never watched a 21 in 21 talk, you don't know what you're in for, but I promise you, you're going to learn something at the end of it. 21 in 21 talks are where invited speakers share their 21-minute talks about all kinds of things. And this really ranges from beekeeping to business building to woodworking, you name it. And you're probably going to hear about it here. This series consists of 21 talks, 21 minutes long, all happening in, you guessed it, 2021. Now, you can watch the talks later. All of the talks are recorded and they're in a playlist over on the Association Chat YouTube channel. So I encourage you to go over there. Speakers can use slides. They can choose to forego them completely. They can speak extemporaneously. They can ask their dog to communicate for them. We haven't had that yet, but that's a possibility. If you think that this sounds exciting, if you've watched 21 in 21 talks and you want to support it, I encourage you to do that too. Go to patreon.com/association chat and try it out. See if you can become a supporter of Association Chat. Now we can go on to the show. For this special 21 in 21 talk, we are hearing from Ron Skinner. Now, Ron is going to talk with us about something that I'm sure is going to perk up many of your ears out there: cost, price, and value in your sponsorships. So take it away, Ron.
All right. Well, thanks, Kiki. I really appreciate the opportunity and have definitely been enjoying the other speakers on this series. It was a great idea, and I'm glad to be able to participate in it. So today, I just want to talk about something that, for anybody who has worked with me over the last, 15 years, they'll be like, oh, not this again. It's a really simple concept around cost and price and value in your association's sponsorship program. And basically, I'm going to turn this into a 21-second version of this talk, because the big takeaway here is simply this: price should not be equal to cost. Price of your sponsorships should be equal to value. That's it. That's the whole ball game right there. Now, I'm hoping that I can entice you, to keep listening by making you this promise. Before the end of these 21 minutes, I expect to provide one moment of disappointment and at least one or two insights, hopefully, that you hadn't thought of. So it's going to be a real roller coaster ride there. So hang on. So the first thing I want to do is just dig in a little bit to cost. So cost is exactly what you think it is. It's how much something costs you. What does the association need to pay to provide this member value? And the member value part is key, right? Members know when, as an association, you're selling out. Your supplier, your corporate partners, they also know your audience, but they aren't driving this bus. You are, and you have to make sure that whatever you're providing is of value to the members. If you provide something that's not valuable to the members and you attach a sponsor to it, at the end of the day, no one's going to be happy with the results. So cost is pretty easy to determine, and it's really enticing to use this as the basis for your price. In the for-profit world, that's the standard practice 90% of the time, right? Your cost of goods sold plus X% profit is your price. And if it's not profitable in the for-profit world, unless it's some kind of a loss leader, right? A loss leading to some future more profitable sale, then why do it? They're in it to make a profit. But another reason cost is so attractive to us when setting the price is this neat thing called the anchoring effect. The cost really feels like a starting point, and it affects our ability to set a price that is actually based on value. So I'm just going to take a little aside and talk for a second about the anchoring effect, because I think it's a really neat concept, and you can look it up as well. There's a lot of stuff out there on that. I think probably one of the easiest examples of this is if you ever go to a furniture store, you walk in, you look at the price tag on this beautiful sofa that you would like to buy, and the price is way more than you expected. You start to feel down. I didn't realize it was going to be so much money. You get discouraged, and then walks over the hero, right? The salesperson comes over and says, hey, good news, big sale right now. Gonna knock that price down by 50%. Wow, I'm so lucky. I'm anchored at that higher price that I assumed this couch is valued at. And somebody just came over and told me what a great deal I'm going to get. And because I was anchored at that higher price, I feel happier about the lower price, and I'm ready to make the purchase. So I'll tell you a little bit of example. I'll show you a little example of this, but let me start with this. Don't look it up or anything, but in your head, think about whether the country of Venezuela has more or less than 65 million people, right? Hugo Chavez, oil, all that stuff, Venezuela, things you know about Venezuela, more or less than 65 million people. Just think about it, and we'll come back to that. So there were these two researchers that did an experiment back in the 1970s where they would ask a participant about how many countries in Africa were part of the United Nations. But first, they would spin this big prize wheel with the numbers 1 to 100 on it. But the wheel was rigged so that it was always either going to land on the number 10 or the number 65. So if it landed on 10, they would ask the participant if they thought that the percentage of countries in Africa that were part of the UN was higher or lower than 10. And then ask, after they said, whether it's higher or lower, well, what do you think the percentage is? So then the same thing is if they landed on 65, ask, is it higher or lower than 65? And then, well, what do you think it is? Now that they've established it's higher or lower, what do you think it is? So the average guess for people when the wheel landed on 10 was 25%, and the average guess when the wheel landed on 65 was 45%, right? These folks were anchored to this number that had, to them randomly come up on this wheel. So it was funny, I was hearing an explanation of this, and apparently some have done the same thing where if you think of the last 2 digits of your cell phone number, so it doesn't have to be anything that's based on what's related, but even just anchoring to a random number before you make a guess will change your perception and change the way you guess. So now, thinking back about Venezuela has 28 million people. So if you are like most, you probably assume something higher. So, and if you did, that is in part because I anchored you at 65 million, right? So just think about when you're looking at your cost, not to be anchored down by that cost and let it drive your decision around price. So what I'm going to do is start a little table of some activities that associations do so we can kind of start running some examples. So here we have in the column, these are just some activities, and because we're talking about sponsorship, I'm going to refer to them as sponsorable assets, right? So you have your assets, attendee badge holders, credential holders, shuttle buses, morning coffee, and then a non-event example, say, is like a recognition program. So the cost of delivering these things, so let's say, we're doing a conference with 1,000 people, 2.5 days. Badge holders, about $1 a piece? So we'll put that in there at 1,000. Shuttle buses, we're taking, let's say, a subset of the attendees off to an off-site event, and so those are going to cost us $5,000. we want to serve, coffee in the morning, for these 1,000 people 2 mornings, and let's say, 30 some gallons of coffee, 17 decaf, 10, water, right? We know all those formulas to figure that out. Let's say it's $6,000. And then this recognition program that we have that runs year round, let's go ahead, we'll say that the cost of that, while there aren't a lot of hard costs, it's at least 25% of an FTE, value that out at around $30,000. So this is the beginning of our looking at what the cost of each of these assets, each of these sponsorable activities that we want to do because our members need it or want it, as part of our conference or as part of our association. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about price, right? And price is just as simple as cost. It's the price you charge your sponsors for the access to your audience that you're selling through this sponsorship opportunity. So here, once again, right, just the amount you want to charge. Once again, we'll pull up our table here and we'll say, okay, we've got our sponsorable assets, we have our costs associated with each one, and we need to have a price. So if in your head right now, you came up with the price for the badge holders, you were not listening. That was a trick. We're not attaching the price of the sponsorship to the cost. So we don't know what the price of this sponsorship is going to be because we haven't yet talked about the value. All right. So let's get back now and talk a little bit about value because that is our moneymaker, right? The values, the worth of the activity, the exposure, or any other benefits you're providing to the potential sponsor, right? They have a problem. Maybe they're a new company and they need brand recognition among your audience. Maybe they're an established company, but they really want to be seen as a thought leader. Or maybe they simply want to collect as many leads as possible for follow-up, right? Your value to them is in solving that problem. So I'm going to pull up our chart one more time. Say, okay, we've got our assets, we've got our costs, we've got our price. We now need to add our value. And here's where I'm going to provide that disappointment. I cannot give you a magic formula to tell you how to value your sponsorships. But what we can do is use that last wide column, if you notice it there in our table, and talk about value drivers. So let's go ahead and jump on over and talk about that. All right. So, oops, I'm sorry. All right, just see if I can get to my, no. All right, well, that's okay. Sorry about that. So I want to talk a little bit about what our value drivers are. And I'm sorry that my slide seems to have disappeared. It's not under here even, apparently. But our value drivers that we're looking at are really things like the audience. What is the value of your audience? Are they decision makers? If it's an event, is the number of attendees at the event a subset of your total membership? Can you expand that audience, right? So you have the folks that you're reaching out to at the event, but you also have the rest of your members. Can this sponsorship reach to those folks as well? The brand recognition. How often will you put this logo in front of your members? How many eyeballs are going to see it? Maybe you can only do text-based recognition, and that lowers the value, but it's still something that you can do. What signage, emails, the event app screen, the program book, anything that you're still doing like that will present their logo or their information to members. Is this an exclusive recognition, or are they being recognized along with other sponsors? The sponsor presence. Can a representative of the sponsoring company be present during the event or participate in the delivery of the asset? The time, how long will the sponsored asset last? How long will you provide exposure and brand recognition around the event or activity? Add-ons and perks. Are you including a registration to the event, exclusive access, VIP reception? Maybe you don't normally allow your corporate or your supplier members to attend this particular event or meeting, but as a sponsor, they can. One of my favorite ones, can you give them access to the hotel room block just a little bit early so they can get a room in the headquarters hotel? Man, so many people love that, right? Special access to information. Do you survey your membership? Can you do a presentation for your sponsor partners as on the results of that survey so they get a little bit more insight? Can ask you questions about what was discovered on this survey. You're going to share this survey data anyway, but if you're doing a special briefing for them, why not? And maybe, in a past association, we actually let our top level partners add a question to the survey so that we could collect some of that information as well, and then we'd share the results with all of our partners. You can also include rights in there. So you don't have to always do everything. You can include rights like, did you give them a logo so that they can use this logo to show that they're a sponsor? It attaches them to you as an association. It's not your main logo, but it's a logo that shows that they're attached to you as a sponsor or partner. Example, we used to give some sponsors the right to hold a focus group. So we didn't pay for the focus group to happen. If they decided they wanted to take advantage of the ability to hold a focus group and say they wanted 10 people, we might, find a list of 50 people that would be attending the event that's in their target group, let them reach out, see if they can get 10 out of those 50. They would reserve their room or space. They would provide the incentive, and invite the folks to participate. They could do their thing. It was just something that we gave them as a right. They could take advantage of it, or they didn't have to. So think about what rights you could put in there as well. And ultimately, this will come down to what the market will bear. What math will they be doing about the potential to acquire leads and the value per lead, right? I know that some of our current suppliers, they can spend $10,000 or $20,000 on coming to our show with the booth and the personnel and everything. And if they get one sale, they've made it. They're happy. Right? Others are not going to be that way. They're lower margin or higher volume, and they're going to need a different kind of access to your members. All right, so if we start applying some of these drivers to our table, what would we come up with? Well, if we're thinking about, one of my favorite examples is the credential holders, right? Because the cost of credential holders is so low, but the impact for a sponsor that wants brand awareness can make the value so high, and sometimes almost too high, right? Your delegates, your attendees are walking around wearing this branded thing on their body for the whole show, and if it has a sponsor's logo on it in color, like it could almost end up looking like it's the sponsor's event, right? That's almost too much in terms of brand recognition. But, I used to have, back in the day, right, a sponsorship person who would come to me and say, don't worry about those badge holders. I've got a sponsor who's definitely going to come up with $1,000 to cover them. In fact, I might even be able to get $1,500. Awesome. Free badge holders? Done. Take it, right? No, there's a lot more value there that you can get out of that. Those shuttle buses, how long is that trip? Are these motor coaches? Do they have video monitors where you can show a sponsor's video? Can the sponsor be on the mic welcoming them? Who are this subset of people that we're taking to this, right? In the apartment industry, maybe these are maintenance techs, and I definitely have sponsors who want to get in front of them. Can you put branded head covers on those seats of the bus? Can you print tickets with the sponsor's logo and let the sponsor's rep collect those tickets, right? Morning coffee, can you brand the cups and napkins? Can the sponsor be there? Can you add it into the script that your speaker is going to say, hey, thank you, XYZ company, for waking us up this morning with that coffee, right? Little things that you can add that drive value, that help meet the objective of that particular sponsor and help you raise that price to generate more revenue for the association, right? So for the recognition program, do these activities related to it happen year round? Does it call for nominations, announcement of the winner? Or maybe it seems too heavy-handed to include a sponsor in a big way in a recognition program. So maybe you just want to tone it down and call them an underwriter or supporter. Remember, the price can be lower than the cost because you're doing the thing because it's a value to members. How you generate revenue around it is not related to that cost, right? So if you can generate a little revenue by having some underwriters that get text recognition for their support, fantastic, do that, right? So this is where it seems like my next slide will come up. Although, I wanted to give you one example, actually. In a past association, we would wrap all of these things up and do a sponsorship around 3 months around our conference. And, we would send out emails to all members about the conference. And every time, we would include our sponsors. We would charge $25,000 for that. And that could be somebody may get solo recognition at the event because they were a badge holder or because they sponsored coffee, but they got that branded recognition and other opportunities through the sponsorship for those 3 months. And we were able to get that price up regardless of what the cost was associated with that. All right, so here's my wrap up, and I think I'm just running out of time. I'm going to get the hook. The worth of the act. Oh, wait, is it jumping over there? Is it going to do this to me now? All right, where are we? There we go. Create sponsorable assets based on the value to the members, right? You can then, add the value for the sponsors, by looking at all of the potential value drivers. And then, of course, make sure not to let cost anchor you down when setting your price, right? And most of all, remember that the price is not equal to the cost. The price is equal to the value, or is approximate the value. You want to anchor them around the value and then set your price so that they know they're getting a good deal. And I think my time is up.
That is brilliant. Ron, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And I can't get over this, but I feel like I need to schedule some time with you separately. We need to talk about association chat sponsorships. I really think I could be doing more than I'm doing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great.
All right. Oh, I cut you off. So what did you think? Oh, there were so many golden nuggets, truths, ideas that you could get from that. And I'm telling you that I was taking notes over here, thinking about how can I apply this in the work that I do, and how can I apply this to association chat. And if you're like me, you're going to be thinking about some of these things you heard today over and over again. So I want to encourage you, if you do want to reach out to Ron, please reach out to Ron. I put his email address while he was talking earlier. You can go back, you can look in the show notes later. But thank you, Ron, so much for sharing your knowledge. And for all of you, you're now 21 minutes wiser, 21 minutes smarter about sponsorships. So I hope you'll use it, and I hope you'll keep asking questions. Why? We ask questions to learn every day because, as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.